Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked down the long metal corridor of the space station. His work shift had been longer than usual today. The atmospheric processors in Section 7 had broken down again, and he spent 12 hours fixing them. His hands were still dirty from the repair work, and his blue jumpsuit had grease stains all over it. All he wanted now was to get back to his small room, take a hot shower, and sleep. The space station called Frontier's Edge was not a fancy place. It was built for research and mining operations at the edge of human space. Jake had been working there for 3 years as a maintenance engineer. He fixed things when they broke and made sure all the systems kept running. It was not exciting work, but it paid well, and Jake liked the quiet life away from busy Earth cities. Jake reached his room and put his hand on the door scanner. The door made a soft beeping sound and slid open. He stepped inside and stopped. Someone was sitting in the corner of his room. It was a woman, but she looked different from any human Jake had ever seen. Her skin was very pale, almost white like fresh snow. Her hair was silver and seemed to glow with its own soft light. Her ears were pointed like the elves in old Earth stories. She wore long flowing clothes that moved like water and sparkled. In the dim room light, the woman looked up at Jake with large eyes that were the color of deep space. She did not seem afraid, even though Jake was much bigger than her. She just sat there quietly watching him. Jake's first thought was to call security, but something about her calm manner made him pause. "Who are you?" Jake asked. "How did you get in my room?" The woman stood up slowly. She was tall and moved with grace like a dancer. When she spoke, her voice was soft and musical, but her words were strange. "I am Lyra of the Valdari Empire," she said. "I became lost during transport. Your customs say I must stay with the first person who gives me shelter." Jake stared at her. "Valdari Empire? I never heard of that. And what do you mean about customs? I didn't give you shelter. You just broke into my room." Lyra tilted her head like she was thinking about his words. "You opened the door for me. You asked who I am instead of calling for guards right away. This shows kindness. My people's laws say I must stay here now." "That's not how it works," Jake said. "You can't just decide to live in someone's room because they were polite to you." But even as he said it, Jake was looking at Lyra more carefully. Her clothes were made from material he had never seen before. They seemed to change color slightly as she moved. Her pointed ears were not fake, and her silver hair really did glow with soft light. She was definitely not human. "Are you an alien?" Jake asked. "Yes," Lyra said simply. "My people have been watching your kind for many years. We live in ships that travel between stars using quantum tunnels. Today there was an error in navigation. Instead of arriving at your diplomatic bay, I appeared here in your personal space." Jake sat down on his bed because his legs suddenly felt weak. First contact with aliens was supposed to happen with important people like diplomats and scientists, not with maintenance engineers in their dirty work clothes. "Why won't you go to the diplomatic bay now?" Jake asked. "I'm sure Captain Hayes would want to meet you properly." Lyra shook her head. "I cannot leave until the sanctuary bond is complete. It is our way. Also, I have studied your people's records. Humans are fascinating. You advance so quickly and never give up even when facing impossible odds. I wanted to meet a regular human, not just your leaders." "You studied us?" Jake asked. "For how long?" 60 of your years," Lyra said. "My people are very old. We have traveled the stars for thousands of years, but humans surprise us. In just a few hundred years you went from simple farming to space travel. Most species take much longer." Jake rubbed his head. This was too much to understand all at once. "Look, Princess Lyra, or whatever your title is, I need to report this to my captain. There are rules about first contact situations. "Please call me just Lyra," she said. "And yes, you should tell your captain. But I will not leave this room until the proper time." Jake used his wall communicator to call the bridge. Captain Lisa Hayes answered after a few rings. She sounded tired. "Morrison here, Captain. I have a situation in my quarters that needs your attention." "What kind of situation, Jake?" Captain Hayes asked. "An alien situation, A woman from something called the Valdari Empire. She says she got lost and ended up in my room." There was a long pause. Then Captain Hayes said, "Are you feeling all right, Morrison? Have you been drinking?" "No, ma'am. I'm completely sober." "She's sitting right here. She has pointed ears and glowing hair. Definitely not human." Another pause. "I'm sending Chief Rodriguez and a security team to your location. Don't do anything until we get there." Jake ended the call and looked at Lyra. She had been listening to the conversation with interest. "Your captain seems cautious," Lyra said. "This is good. Caution keeps people alive." "Have you met other humans before today?" Jake asked. "No," Lyra said. "You are my first direct contact. But I have watched many recordings of human behavior. You are exactly what I expected." "What did you expect?" Lyra smiled for the first time since Jake found her. It made her face look warm and friendly. "I expected someone who would ask questions instead of running away. Someone who would try to understand instead of attacking. Someone practical who solves problems. This is why humans interest my people so much." Before Jake could ask what she meant, the door chimed. Captain Hayes entered with Chief Science Officer Amy Rodriguez and 2 security guards. They all stopped and stared at Lyra, just like Jake had done. "Well," Captain Hayes said slowly, "this is definitely not what I expected to deal with today." Captain Lisa Hayes stood in the doorway looking at Lyra with the expression of someone trying to solve a difficult puzzle. Chief Science Officer Amy Rodriguez had pulled out her scanner and was taking readings. The 2 security guards kept their hands near their weapons, but did not draw them. "I am Captain Hayes, commander of this station," Lisa said formally. "You claim to be from the Valdari Empire?" Lyra stood and gave a slight bow. "Yes, Captain Hayes. I am Princess Lyra, 3rd in line to command our exploration fleet. I apologize for the unusual circumstances of our meeting." Amy Rodriguez looked at her scanner readings with wide eyes. "Captain, her biological signatures are unlike anything in our databases. She's definitely not human, but she's not like any known alien species either." "That is because my people have not made formal contact with yours yet," Lyra said. "We have been observing and learning about humanity from a distance." Captain Hayes crossed her arms. "And why is that? Why watch us in secret instead of introducing yourselves?" Lyra was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "Because we needed to understand what kind of people you are. The galaxy can be a dangerous place, Captain Hayes. There are species that destroy others simply because they exist. We had to know if humans could be trusted." "And what conclusion did you reach?" Lisa asked. "That humans are remarkable," Lyra said. "Your people show courage that amazes us. You explore dangerous places, help others even when it costs you, and never surrender even when facing impossible odds. These are rare qualities." Jake had been listening quietly, but now he spoke up. "She says she can't leave my room because of some sanctuary law. Is that true?" Lyra nodded. "When a Valdari seeks shelter and is not turned away, a sanctuary bond forms. I must remain under the protection of the one who first showed me kindness until proper arrangements can be made." "How long does that take?" Captain Hayes asked. "It depends on the situation," Lyra said. "Usually a few days while negotiations happen between our peoples." Amy Rodriguez was still studying her scanner. "Captain, I'm reading energy signatures from her clothing, and what appears to be some kind of advanced technology integrated into the fabric. It is standard Valdari attire, Lyra explained. The material regulates temperature and provides protection. It also contains communication devices and emergency medical systems. Impressive, Amy said. Our technology is nowhere near that advanced. Lyra looked surprised. But humans have achieved so much in such a short time. Your species has only had space travel for a few centuries, yet you have spread to dozens of star systems. Most species take thousands of years to accomplish what you have done. Captain Hayes studied Lyra carefully. You mentioned that you're third in line to command an exploration fleet. That sounds like a military position. It can be, Lyra admitted. But our exploration fleets are primarily for peaceful contact and scientific research. However, we must be prepared to defend ourselves. And our allies? Allies? Jake asked. Do you have many of those? Lyra's expression became serious. Not as many as we once did. There is a great threat spreading through this part of the galaxy. A species called the Krillian Horde. They consume entire star systems, destroying all life they encounter. Many civilizations have already fallen to them. The room became very quiet. Captain Hayes and Amy Rodriguez exchanged worried looks. How far away are these Krillians? Lisa asked. They destroyed the Centauri colonies 6 months ago, Lyra said. They are moving toward this sector of space. We estimate they will reach human territory within 2 years. Amy Rodriguez dropped her scatter. The Centauri colonies? But we lost contact with them months ago. We thought it was just equipment failure. No, Lyra said sadly. The Krillians leave nothing behind. No survivors, no intact technology, no habitable worlds. They strip everything useful and move on to the next target. Jake felt cold despite the warm air in his room. Why are you telling? Use this? If your people have been watching us secretly, why reveal it now? Lyra looked directly at him. Because my people have been fighting the Krillians for 300 years, and we are losing. We need allies who think differently than we do. Humans have a reputation for finding solutions that others cannot see. What kind of reputation? Captain Hayes asked. Stories of human courage and ingenuity have spread throughout this part of the galaxy, Lyra said. How you survived the Mars colony disaster when everyone said it was impossible. How you defeated the automated defense systems. At Wolf 359, using tactics no one had ever tried before. How you always find a way to win, even when you should lose. Amy Rodriguez sat down heavily in Jake's chair. You're asking us to help you fight a war against an enemy that has been destroying civilizations for hundreds of years. I am asking you to consider it, Lyra said. But first, my people need to understand humans better. That is why I requested this assignment. You requested it? Jake asked. I thought you said your navigation system malfunctioned. Lyra looked embarrassed. That was not entirely true. I did modify the navigation to bring me to your quarters specifically. Why my quarters? Jake asked. Because I studied the personnel files of this station. You are what humans call a problem solver. When things break, you find ways to fix them. When systems fail, you create new solutions. This is exactly the kind of thinking we need to learn. Captain Hayes shook her head. So, you deliberately invaded the personal space of one of my crew members as part of some kind of intelligence-gathering mission? No, Lyra said firmly. I came here to learn and to offer alliance against a common enemy. The Krillians will not stop with Valdari space. They will come for humanity next. Together, we might have a chance to stop them. Separately, we will both fall. Jake looked around the room at the serious faces of his captain and colleagues. A few hours ago, his biggest worry was getting enough sleep before his next shift. Now he was apparently involved in first contact with an alien empire and learning about a threat that could destroy all human colonies. What happens now? He asked Captain. Hayes straightened up in her command posture. Now we contact Earth Command and report this situation. Princess Lyra, I assume you have ways to communicate with your people? Yes, Lyra said. But I hope you will allow me to remain here while negotiations begin. I have much to learn about human methods, and Jake Morrison has already taught me more. In one conversation than months of observation. What did I teach you? Jake asked, confused. Lyra smiled again. That humans ask the right questions, even when they are afraid. That you seek to understand instead of simply reacting. That you think of others, even when dealing with your own problems. These qualities give me hope that our peoples can work together. Captain Hayes looked at Jake. Morrison, are you willing to continue hosting our guest while we sort this out? Jake thought about his small room and his quiet life. Then he thought about alien invaders destroying entire star systems. I guess my room just got a lot more interesting, he said. 3 days had passed since Lyra arrived on the station. Jake had gotten used to sharing his small room with the alien princess, though it was still strange to wake up and see her sitting quietly in the corner, always alert and watching everything. With those deep space eyes. She slept very little and seemed to spend most of her time studying human behavior and technology. Jake was working on a broken power coupling in the engineering section when the station alarms began screaming. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and the emergency announcement system crackled to life. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Unknown ships approaching our position. All personnel to emergency stations immediately. Jake dropped his tools and ran toward the command center. Lyra appeared beside him in the corridor, moving with that fluid grace that made her seem like she was floating rather than running. The alarms, she said. What do they mean? Emergency stations. Jake replied, breathing hard as they climbed the stairs to the upper levels. Unknown ships usually means trouble out here. They reached the command center, where Captain Hayes was standing at the main display screen. The screen showed dozens of dots moving toward their position. Jake had never seen so many ships in one place before. How many are there? Amy Rodriguez asked from her science station. Sensors show 47 vessels, came the reply from Lieutenant Beth Turner at the tactical station. They're big, Captain, much larger than anything in our fleet. Captain. Hayes noticed Jake and Lyra entering the command center. Morrison, you should be at your emergency post. Captain, Lyra said urgently, may I see the sensor readings? Lisa Hayes looked at the alien woman for a moment, then nodded to Beth Turner. Put the readings on screen 4. Lyra studied the display for only a few seconds before her face went completely white. No, she whispered. It cannot be. They are not supposed to be here yet. What is it? Captain Hayes demanded. Krillians, Lyra said, her voice barely audible. A full scouting fleet. They are 2 years early. The command center became very quiet, except for the humming of computers and the distant sound of alarms. Jake felt his stomach drop like he was falling. Are you certain? Amy Rodriguez asked. Lyra nodded. The energy signatures match exactly. Crystalline hulls that absorb most weapons fire. Quantum displacement drives that let them appear anywhere without warning. Ships designed only for destruction. How long do we have? Captain Hayes asked. They will scan the system first, Lyra said. Look for resources, population centers, defensive capabilities. Then they will begin the harvesting process. Perhaps 6 hours. Beth Turner looked up from her tactical station. Captain, I'm getting reports from the outer colonies. 3 mining stations have gone dark in the last hour. No distress calls. No emergency beacons. Just nothing. Jake thought about the families living on those mining stations. Children, workers, people just trying to make a living at the edge of human space. Now they were gone. Can we evacuate? He asked. Not enough ships, Captain Hayes said grimly. And nowhere to run that they won't catch us. We have to fight, Beth Turner said. With what? Amy Rodriguez asked. Our weapons won't even scratch. They're holes, according to Princess Lyra. Lyra was staring at the sensor display with an intense expression. There might be a way, she said slowly, but it would require cooperation between our technologies. Explain, Captain Hayes ordered. Krillian ships are nearly invulnerable to energy weapons, Lyra said, but they have one weakness. Their crystalline hulls resonate at specific frequencies. If we could generate the right harmonic vibrations, we might be able to shatter them. What kind of vibrations? Jake asked. Lyra looked at him. The kind that human industrial equipment produces. Your mining lasers, construction tools, even your ship engines create harmonic frequencies that Krillians never encounter. They have no defense against it because no species has ever thought to use industrial tools as weapons. Amy Rodriguez was already running calculations on her computer. The mathematics work. If we could modify our mining equipment and coordinate the frequencies with Valderay quantum resonance technology, we might actually damage their ships. How many Valderay ships are in this system? Captain Hayes asked. My personal transport is hidden near the asteroid belt, Lyra said. But it is only one small vessel. One ship against 47? Beth Turner shook her head. Those are impossible odds. Jake was thinking about something Lyra had said earlier. You mentioned that humans have a reputation for winning when we should lose? How do we do that? Lyra looked at him with what might have been hope. By doing things that no one expects. By using whatever tools you have, instead of wishing for better ones. By refusing to give up even when the situation seems hopeless. Then we need to think like humans instead of like traditional military forces, Jake said. What resources do we actually have? Captain Hayes understood immediately. Morrison is right. We're not a military station. We're an industrial facility. We have mining ships, construction equipment, fabrication plants, and a human engineer who solves problems when systems fail, Lyra added, looking at Jake. Amy Rodriguez was getting excited. If we could retrofit the mining ships with quantum resonance transmitters from Princess Lyra's vessel, we could turn them into weapons. The Krillians would never expect an attack from industrial equipment. How long would the modifications take? Captain Hayes asked. With human fabrication speed and Valderay quantum technology working together, perhaps 4 hours, Lyra said. That gives us 2 hours before they arrive, Beth Turner calculated. It's not enough time, Amy said. Jake was already heading for the door. Then we better get started now and work faster than we ever have before. Captain Hayes called after him. Morrison, where are you going? To the fabrication bay, Jake called back. If we're going to do this, we need every engineer and technician on the station working together. Princess Lyra, I hope your people are as good at improvising as you said humans are. Lyra followed him out of the command center. Jake Morrison, she said as they ran down the corridor, you are about to discover something that my people learned long ago. Humans do not fight wars the way other species do. You fight to win, not to follow rules. Good, Jake said. Because I'm about to break every safety regulation in the book to build weapons out of mining equipment. This is why we wanted you. As allies, Lyra said, and for the first time since the alarm started, she was smiling. As they reached the fabrication bay, Jake could hear activity throughout the station. Crew members were running to their posts. Engineers were pulling tools from storage. And everyone was moving with the urgent energy of people who knew their lives depended on working together. The impossible fight was about to begin. The fabrication bay had become a scene of controlled chaos. Jake had never seen so many people working so fast on the space station. Engineers were pulling apart mining equipment while technicians rewired power systems. Sparks flew from welding torches, as hull plates were cut and reshaped. The air smelled of hot metal and electrical components. Lyra stood at a work table with her hands pressed against a device that looked like a crystal sculpture. It was glowing with soft blue light and humming with energy. "This is a quantum resonance transmitter from my ship," she explained to Amy Rodriguez, who was scanning it with every instrument she could find. "The energy patterns are incredible," Amy said. "It's like it exists in multiple dimensions at the same time." "That is exactly what it does," Lyra said. "Thaldari technology works by manipulating quantum probability. We can make things exist in several states simultaneously until we need them to be specific." Jake was working on a mining laser, his hands moving quickly as he connected new control circuits. "Can we make these quantum transmitters work with our power systems?" "Yes, but we will need to modify the frequency outputs," Lyra said. "Human technology operates on different energy principles than ours. Your people use brute force solutions where we use elegant precision. Right now, brute force is exactly what we need," Jake said, testing his modifications. A mining laser hummed to life with a sound that was deeper and more resonant than normal. "How does that sound to you?" Lyra listened carefully. "The harmonic frequency is close, but not perfect. We need to adjust it by 0.7%. Jake made the adjustment and fired the laser at a test plate. Instead of cutting through the metal cleanly, the laser beam made the entire plate vibrate and crack. "That's not normal," he said. "That is perfect," Lyra said with excitement. "You have created a harmonic disruptor. Instead of cutting, it makes the target material tear itself apart from the inside." Across the fabrication bay, other teams were working on similar modifications. The station's 3 mining ships were being converted into attack vessels. Engineers were mounting the modified mining lasers on rotating platforms and installing quantum transmitters throughout the ships. Systems. Hayes entered the bay and looked around at the activity. "Status report, Morrison. We have successfully modified 6 mining lasers and 2 construction beam projectors," Jake reported. "The quantum resonance is working, but we're still learning how to control it properly. Time remaining?" Captain Hayes asked. Beth Turner checked her chronometer. 90 minutes until the Krillian fleet reaches our position." Lyra looked up from her work. "Captain Hayes, there is something else you should know about Krillian tactics. They do not expect resistance from species they consider primitive. They will approach this station assuming you will surrender or run away." "Good," Captain Hayes said. "Let them underestimate us. But when they realize you are fighting back, they will become very aggressive very quickly," Lyra continued. "Krillians do not accept defeat. They will try to destroy everything rather than retreat." Jake was connecting power cables to another mining ship when he had an idea. "Princess Lyra, you said the Krillians strip planets of all resources, right?" "Yes. They consume everything useful and leave nothing behind. So they must have some way to quickly break down planetary defenses and industrial facilities." Lyra nodded. "They use focused gravity beams to crush buildings and quantum destabilizers to shut down power systems. What if we could turn those weapons against them?" Jake asked. "Use their own technology to destroy their ships?" Amy Rodriguez looked up from her calculations. "That would require us to capture Krillian equipment during battle and reverse engineer it in real time. Humans have done crazier things," Jake said. "This is true," Lyra said thoughtfully. "My people have studied human military history. You have a talent for capturing enemy weapons and using them immediately, even without understanding how they work." Captain Hayes was listening to the conversation with interest. "Are you suggesting we board Krillian ships during combat?" "I'm suggesting we be ready to try anything that might work," Jake said. "Traditional space combat tactics won't win this fight. We need to be unpredictable." Lyra walked over to Jake's workstation and examined the modified mining equipment. "There is something else we could try. If we could get close enough to the Krillian command ship, we might be able to use the quantum resonance to disrupt their fleet coordination." "How close would we need to get?" Beth Turner asked. "Very close," Lyra admitted. "Close enough to touch." "Their hull. That's suicide," Amy Rodriguez said. "Maybe," Jake said. "Or maybe it's exactly the kind of crazy plan that works because no one expects it." An announcement came over the station communication system. "All personnel, this is Captain Hayes. The enemy fleet will arrive in 1 hour. All non-essential crew are to report to the emergency shelters. All combat personnel and volunteers are to report to their assigned positions. This station has never backed down from a fight, and we are not starting today." Jake looked around the fabrication bay at the faces of his colleagues. These were engineers and technicians, not soldiers. But they were working with the determination of people who knew they were fighting for their lives and the lives of everyone they cared about. "Jake Morrison," Lyra said quietly so only he could hear, "I need to tell you something important." "What is it?" "My people sent me here to evaluate whether humans would make good allies. I was supposed to observe and report back to the Valdari High Council." "And what will you report?" Jake asked. Lyra looked around the fabrication bay at the humans working frantically to build weapons from mining equipment, trying to find a way to fight an enemy that had destroyed dozens of civilizations. "I will report that humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy," she said. "Not because you are violent, but because you never know when you are supposed to lose. You keep fighting and finding new solutions, even when the situation is hopeless. The Krillians have never faced anything like that." "Is that good or bad?" Jake asked. "For us it is very good," Lyra said. "For the Krillians, it will be terrifying." The final preparations were almost complete. The mining ships had been converted into improvised warships. The modified weapons were powered up and ready. The quantum resonance transmitters were synchronized and functioning. In 30 minutes, the most powerful enemy fleet in known space would arrive expecting to find an easy target. Instead, they would find something that had never existed before. Humans and Valdari working together, using industrial tools as weapons, and refusing to surrender, no matter what the odds. Jake hoped it would be enough. The Krillian fleet appeared exactly when Lyra predicted they would. Jake watched from the command center as 47 massive crystalline ships materialized out of empty space, like deadly jewels catching starlight. Each ship was the size of a small city, and they moved in perfect formation toward the space station. "They are beautiful," Amy Rodriguez whispered, "and terrifying." "They are death," Lyra said simply. "Those ships have destroyed more worlds than I can count." Captain Hayes stood at the main tactical display. "All ships report ready, Captain," Beth Turner announced. "Modified weapons are charged and quantum resonance is synchronized." The 3 converted mining ships looked tiny compared to the approaching Krillian fleet. Jake could see them on the screen, industrial vessels that had been turned into improvised warships in just a few hours. It seemed impossible that such small ships could fight against an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy. "Incoming transmission from the Krillian command ship," the communications officer reported. "Put it on screen," Captain Hayes ordered. Main display showed a creature that looked like it was made of living crystal. Its voice sounded like breaking glass when it spoke. "Primitive humans. You will surrender your station and all resources immediately. Resistance will result in complete destruction." Captain Hayes stepped forward. "This is Captain Lysa Hayes of the Human Research Station Frontier's Edge. We do not surrender to anyone." The Krillian commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your defenses are worthless. Submit now, and your deaths will be quick." "Counter-proposal," Captain Hayes said calmly. Turn around and leave human space immediately, or we will show you why every species in this galaxy has learned to respect human stubbornness." The transmission ended. The Krillian fleet began moving faster toward the station. "They are charging weapons," Beth Turner reported. "Energy signatures are off our measurement scales. All ships begin attack pattern Morrison." Captain Hayes ordered. Jake looked surprised. "You named the attack pattern after me?" "It was your idea to use mining equipment as weapons," the captain replied. "Now let's see if it works." The 3 human ships moved toward the Krillian fleet in a pattern that made no sense by traditional military standards. Instead of maintaining formation, they spread out and approached from different angles. The modified mining lasers began firing, creating harmonic resonance beams that hit the crystalline hulls of the enemy ships. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Krillian ships continued their approach, firing back with energy beams that could have vaporized normal spacecraft. But the human ships were equipped with Valdari quantum shielding that made them flicker in and out of existence, making them nearly impossible to target accurately. Then Jake heard a sound he had never heard before. It was a deep, resonant cracking, noise that seemed to come from space itself. "Look at the lead Krillian ship," Amy Rodriguez said with excitement. Cracks were appearing in the crystalline hull. The harmonic resonance was working, making the entire ship vibrate at its natural frequency until the structure began to fail. "It's working," Beth Turner shouted. "The harmonic disruptors are actually working." But the Krillians adapted quickly. Their fleet formation changed, and they began firing concentrated energy bursts that overwhelmed the quantum shielding. One of the human mining ships exploded in a burst of light and debris. "We lost the deep digger," the communications officer reported. Jake watched the explosion and felt anger burning in his chest. Those were his colleagues, people he had worked with for years. "Princess Lyra," he said, "how close do we need to get?" "To disrupt their command ship?" "Very close," she replied. "But it would be a suicide mission." "Maybe not," Jake said. He was studying the tactical display and remembering something from his engineering training. "Captain, I have an idea. It's dangerous and probably stupid, but it might work." "Explain quickly," Captain Hayes said as another mining ship took heavy damage. "The station has emergency pods for evacuating personnel," Jake said. "They're small, fast, and have minimal energy signatures. If we could modify one with a quantum resonance transmitter and get it close to the command ship, we might be able to cause a feedback cascade that would disable their entire fleet." "That's insane," Amy Rodriguez said. "Those pods have no weapons, no shields, no way to survive in a combat zone." "Exactly," Jake said. "They won't expect it." Captain Hayes looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was being destroyed piece by piece. In a few more minutes, the Krillians would reach the station and begin harvesting operations. "Do it," she ordered. Jake ran to the emergency pod bay with Lyra close behind him. They worked frantically to install a quantum resonance transmitter in the small escape pod. It barely fit, and Jake had to remove most of the life support systems to make room. "This pod will only have enough air for 20 minutes, Lyra warned. "Then we better make this quick," Jake said, sealing the last connection. "We?" Lyra asked. "You're the only one who knows how to operate Valdari technology," Jake pointed out. "And I'm the only one crazy enough to fly this thing into the middle of a Krillian fleet." They climbed into the tiny pod together. Jake had never been so close to another person in such a small space, especially an alien princess who smelled like starlight and moved like poetry. But there was no time to think about that now. The pod launched from the Bev station and accelerated toward the Krillian command ship. Jake flew in a pattern that looked random, but was actually designed to avoid the energy weapon targeting systems. The pod was so small and fast that most of the Krillian gunners ignored it. "Approaching optimal range," Lyra said, her hands dancing over the quantum transmitter controls. "I need 30 more seconds." A Krillian fighter ship spotted them and began firing. Jake pushed the pod's engines beyond their safety limits, dodging energy beams by margins measured in meters. "Now," Lyra said. She activated the quantum resonance transmitter at full power. The small device overloaded immediately and began smoking, but not before it sent a massive harmonic pulse directly into the hull of the Krillian command ship. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The command ship began vibrating so violently that pieces of its crystalline hull started breaking off. The vibration spread to other ships in the fleet through their quantum communication links, creating a cascade failure that Jake could hear even through the vacuum of space. One by one, the Krillian ships began to crack and break apart. Their perfect formation collapsed as individual vessels lost power and structural integrity. The mighty fleet that had destroyed dozens of civilizations was being torn apart by modified mining equipment and human stubbornness. "We did it," Jake said, watching the enemy ships breaking apart. "We actually did it." "Yes," Lyra said, "but we may have done it too well. The pod's engines are damaged, and we are drifting toward the largest debris field." Jake looked at the controls. Half of them were dead, and the other half were flashing warning lights. "Well, Princess, I hope your people come looking for you soon." "They will," Lyra said confidently. "And they will find us together, which will make a very interesting story for the Valdari High Council." The emergency pod drifted through the wreckage of the Krillian fleet while rescue ships from the station moved to pick them up. Jake looked through the small porthole at the debris that had once been the most feared enemy in the galaxy. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now my people and your people become allies," Lyra said. "We share technology, coordinate defenses, and make sure the Krillians never threaten anyone again." "And what happens to us?" Jake asked. Lyra smiled that warm smile that made her face glow brighter than her silver hair. "I think I will need to extend my stay on your station. There is still much I need to learn about human problem-solving methods." "Good," Jake said, "because my room just got a lot more interesting, and I think I'm getting used to having a quiet alien princess around." Through the porthole, they could see Captain Hayes' rescue ship approaching. In the distance, the space station Frontier's edge was intact and safe. The impossible battle was over, and somehow, against all odds, the humans and their new Valdari ally had won out. It was, Jake thought, exactly the kind of crazy victory that would become another story about human stubbornness spreading throughout the galaxy. And he was perfectly fine with that.